So today I'm going to be talking about some of the settings I use for my VR. So this is on servers like Pushin P and Hesi. As you can see here, this is a Pushin P server, that G37 coupe that Privy made, of course. So when you're looking at it on the screen like this, it's not the same at all. So when you have that VR headset on, you know you're really in there. So this is for the VR users mostly. Not really applying for monitor players, because when I used to play on a monitor, I run way different settings. So just I'm gonna talk about some of the things I do to get this consistent picture. And the clip you're seeing right there is actually some conservative settings I was running yesterday. So let's get into it. So first thing, these settings may not be the same for you. You may have to tweak these. So this works for me, and this is what I get. So it may be a little bit different based off what hardware you're running. But on my hardware, I'm gonna drop this in the description, and I'm gonna drop timestamps so you could just skip through if you don't feel like you mess with any of the settings I'm using. Um, so I have an RX 6800 non-XT. Uh, just overclocked just a little bit on the fans only and the VRAM, not the actual core clock at all. Then I have Ryzen 7 5700X, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 3600, I think DL16 probably. A whole bunch of fans in here. Of course, you may have to tweak your settings. So I'll start with. Okay, so for me, I'm running an Oculus Rift S. So I'm using Oculus software. You use whatever software you're using to use your super sampling. If you have to use TeamVR, use TeamVR. If not, you can use one of the tools I'm gonna put down later to actually super sample later on. So I use Oculus. So when I go in here, my Oculus Rift's connected. I prioritize quality because when you either one of these three settings, what they do is they actually change the rendering resolution. So I want the highest resolution to be rendered. That's really what I'm going for here. I'm running ASW on. So with that, I try to crank up my super sampling and the highest render resolution, high settings and things like that. But then some of the effects may be tweaked a little bit, which we'll talk about later for Assetto Corsa. So yeah, that was the Oculus part. So highest resolution there. And then for Oculus, I'm also using the Oculus Tray tool. So the Oculus Tray tool is just the Oculus debug tool in a nutshell. So how I opened this one first, it kicked in my settings that I already have here saved, and then it just punched them in here. So the thing about using Oculus Tray tool versus the debug tool is that I can close this out, right? And if I close it out, those settings won't save, so that won't be working in the background. But with this, I don't have to close it out. I can actually just minimize it and it actually goes away. And instead of me having a whole nother tab open while I'm streaming or whatever. So that helps. And then you can restart your service, because if you don't restart your service, what's going to happen is your settings will not take effect if you have your headset on. So always restart. And then I will move on here. Okay, so I'm also running my game in OpenVR, or OpenXR. So OpenXR, the way I use it, I use an OpenXRToolkit, which actually takes over Steam. So with that, in Assetto Corsa or Content Manager, of course, I use OpenVR here. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit more here. I love OpenXRToolkit. You don't need to look up OpenComposite. So with this, OpenComposite is what's letting OpenVR run in OpenXR. So you need OpenComposite on the OpenXR side, or else this is not gonna work. And you're also gonna need to do something else afterwards, which I'll talk about, or else Assetto Corsa may not run up in OpenVR. So download the latest version. I've already done that. Install it, and this you're not gonna use. So I have it here, so this is it. So you don't need to have this open. This runs in the background. So sometimes if it doesn't show up automatically, you may need to just reset, turn this on here, and then go back in. But make sure you know what your hotkeys are. So mine are changed, so that it's just the regular WASD, so it seems normal instead of like F1, F2, F3. So this is how I navigate the menu in game. So you don't need to have OpenXRToolkit, but I use this for my FSR because I've noticed that FSR in Assetto Corsa is much worse than FSR in here, because this is just rendering it right in your eyes. So yeah, download OpenXRToolkit. Also download OpenComposite. So with OpenComposite, you're gonna find it right here, so you don't need to search elsewhere. So go ahead, OpenComposite. Okay, so download the OpenComposite launcher. Oh, actually, no, you don't want this one. Did that. Sorry about that. So what you need is the XR branch of OpenComposite. So oh shit, okay. Right back to the same place. Alright. Alright, so we just go here and to OpenComposite, and it has to be this one because there's gonna be two. If you just go to the main branch and you just download OpenComposite, which I actually did before, you're probably not gonna work. No, I don't have it there, but yeah, yeah, there it is. Yeah, see, this is just OpenComposite. This one is actually OpenComposite for OpenXR, which when I open it here, you will see that it has to say OpenXR. If it doesn't say OpenXR, go back and just make sure you downloaded the right one with that says OpenXR right here. And then when you open it, it'll either show you downloading stuff right here in your status. If you have to do an update, which happens pretty frequently, which is good. If not, it'll just say status OpenComposite or Steam VR. So if it says Steam VR up here, just switch it to OpenComposite. And then what's gonna happen is whenever you launch a game in Steam VR, it's going to just launch in OpenXR instead, which is gonna be my goal here. Which when we launch into Assetto Corsa here in VR, you're gonna see what I do and how I tweak my settings to get like just a consistent experience with very nice graphic quality. Okay, so this one step is very important, so do not miss this. This is for your OpenComposite. So OpenComposite may not launch if you don't do this. So it's going to be looking for this file, and then if it doesn't find this file, it's just going to give you a random error, not from OpenComposite, but from Assetto Corsa not knowing what the hell just happened. So head over to your local disk and into your programs files 86, find Steam apps. Well, actually, let's do this an easier way. Go ahead and go into Steam, find your library, hit Assetto Corsa, settings, manage, browse local files, and it'll take you right to the root folder, so you don't have to search. So when you get into your Assetto Corsa root folder, if you already know where this is, then great. Hit System, find x64, and see this file here. You have to create this. So go ahead and make a new text document, and make sure you type in these three commands. So just type them in there. Name it opencomposite.ini, and when you save it, make sure you press save as and type it in here. So opencomposite.ini, and it can be .text, but you have to type it in here and press save as. If not, it's not gonna ini correctly, so you have to save as. And I already have it, so I'm not gonna replace it. So just save it, and then I'm going to get into my Assetto Corsa and Content Manager settings. So I will start with Assetto Corsa. So you see here, my goal is, since these servers are so taxing on your CPU, so what happens is if I'm streaming and running Oculus Mirror, I'm not gonna hit my native frame rate at all. It's just gonna uh maybe like 60 with all the cars. It's that the traffic is very taxing on your system. So unless you got a super build, you're probably not gonna be able to hit your native resolution with super sampling on. If you can run it without any super sampling, then these settings might just work for you at native without any type of motion smoothing. So you know, tweak them at your will, but you can use this as a baseline. So my goal is to run ASW on with the highest possible settings. So in my Oculus trade tool, just show this. So I'm running a 2x super sampling, and then I'm running quality. So I'm running the highest render right now, and probably like 4x the stress on my GPU. But with ASW at 45 hertz, my GPU can take it. So you see I'm running consistent here. It's working fine. When you're in the headset, you don't really notice it, and your picture is so nice. I think it's worth the trade-off. But if you want to tweak your settings so you have no super sampling and your native frame rate, that's fine too. I do that for iRacing. I can run 1.5 super sampling and my native 80 hertz and still have a lot of headroom. But here are my Assetto Corsa settings. So you can take a screenshot here, but I'll kind of talk about this. So I turn this all the way up because I just want the highest picture quality. Make sure you don't hit full screen. If you hit full screen, you're gonna just kill your FPS in VR. So make sure you run your highest pixel density on your monitor, or else you're not going to see what you call it, your edges are not gonna hit. Your screen is just gonna be like real tiny and scrunched up in your face when you're in VR. So run full pixel density. If you want to turn down the frame rate, that's perfectly fine, because for me, I just record what's in the headset anyway, so I don't care about what's outside the monitor. You don't want to limit your frame rate. You just want to let your system work as it does. So like that, VSync off. You're in VR. Of course, MSA 8 times. So I turn this all the way up with the filtering. My world details all the way up. So my shadows. This is where you kind of have to compromise. So you have to choose if you want to have shadows or reflections, because they're both very taxing on your GPU in general. So I went a little high on the shadows, because I want it to feel like the cars are really there, you know. And minimum on smoke, because I don't really care. And if you're in a drift server, I already have I think I have custom smoke on CSP, but I may not. um you can show smoke in mirrors, it's up to you. I don't. Reflections, I keep these at 512, one face per frame. It has to be anything but static, I think, but one face per frame is pretty good. I'm running pure, so if you're not running pure as your weather script, I would suggest running pure. Pure is a great weather script. But of course solo is also great, but I prefer pure. Um, Rendering distance, this is what I have it at. You can change this to your liking. From what I hear, it's not supposed to really affect your system, but if you put it all the way to the top, who knows what may happen. Load bias, I have this one on, so this you can keep at 0, but I turn this just to -25 just for a little extra sharp. I'll talk about my filter. So for this filter, I'm going to drop the link in the description. So I found that this filter is one of the best. So when I was trying to hit my full 80 hertz and doing testing, this filter as well as Soul Extra are the best filters for VR. I've tried natural, pure, premiere. You see all these filters here. I've tried them all. So this one looks somewhat the best. Pure is very good, but you know, pure is, the filter itself is a little bit more taxing on your system. This is a nice in between, and it does well and it looks well. So I just turned this to maximum. glare quality medium, depth of field off, since you don't actually see this while driving, so you can turn this on. It doesn't actually affect your system, just your recordings. But I have this set to off. Motion blur off. This is just default. Heat shimmering, this doesn't matter. This is just like heat from the car when the air shakes. You know what I'm talking about, when it looks like it's coming off the grill. Sun rays, I just leave that off. FXAA, I leave this on because I want the best picture quality in general. Mirror resolution max with high quality. I want to feel like I could look at my mirrors, so that's why I have smart mirrors on in CSP2. Um, Pixels per display, just leave this at 1. This is not this is actually gonna multiply against what you have at in ASW. I mean, not ASW, in OTT. So I just leave this at 1. Don't touch that. Skybox reflections, I've seen this at 150 before, but I think this just affects how shiny your car is. This automatic. So this is that. I'm gonna drop a link to my settings in the description. So this is one, but I'm also gonna drop this one. So this is a more conservative setting. So if you want to run maybe a lower super sampling and just your native resolution without ASW, this might be a good middle ground. So I'm not going to talk about the settings again. I've already talked about them. So of course you can tweak them still from here, but this is a good middle ground for just running native sometimes. But I'll move on to my DSP settings here, and then I will also drop a link to this in the description. So this is only for VR. If I'm playing on monitor, this looks absolutely horrible. So um here, this is like my monitor settings and then VR. So with VR, I guess I'll start at of course we have pure as my weather script. I turn off all these. Oh wait. Yeah, so these are performance options, so I turn these off because I don't really care for looking at extra detailed skies if when I'm driving, if that makes sense. Um, or say headlights, yeah. This stuff you don't really need. If you're running static reflections, that can actually save you some headroom on your system. So this may be important if you maybe want to turn this down a little bit so your static reflections are a little bit better. That can be something you can do. I will move on to the top. So general patch settings. So for here, I don't really touch much of this stuff. I just leave it as is, except for the optimizations. So on the optimization side, I try to do a lot of the CPU optimizations because I want my while I'm streaming, my CPU is actually sort of the bottleneck. I'm not as much GPU bound, but my CPU starts to heat up quickly, but I still have some headroom there. And then I leave this off because I'm using VRToolkit to actually do a lot of this stuff here too. So I'm just gonna move on. I leave this on. This is some of the stuff I leave on. You can leave this as is. Car instruments, this is like your YouTube and stuff and the no Hesi servers. So I leave this on because sometimes I do listen to the YouTube in there. Taser camera, I don't need this. I don't use none of this. If you do, you can probably turn some of this on. Colorful shadows, I leave this on because this actually does look pretty good. DXGI, you can leave this on or off. See what works good for you. Kind of do some tests here. Extra effects, I leave this off. So these extra effects are probably going to be pretty taxing. These are only on single screen though, so doesn't work on VR. So you can just go ahead and turn that bad boy off. Fake shadows, I leave this on. It's not crazy on your system, so it's only if your car's off the ground. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. So just leave it on. Of course, leave this on. Of course, this doesn't affect your graphics. I don't use this, so I leave that off. Gamepad, I do not use that, so it's just leave that off. So here in these graphic adjustments, this is kind of important. So I use FSR, but I don't use it here. So this FSR is not good for me for some reason, so I just don't use it even though I have an AMD GPU. So I use it right in the headset with the toolkit. So I leave this off, and then this is kind of like so this is gonna save you a little bit of headroom, these settings here. So you want to toggle these on. You want to toggle this on. This is already on by default, I think. Can leave these where it's at, but it's up to you. This is how long you see cars for. So how long you see, like how detailed this rear end is for how long, basically. So you can leave this as is, but if you want to turn it up, see how much it taxes your system. And then adaptive clip planes. This may look a little funny, so turn this on if you want, but I have it off because it messes with me in VR. So I just leave it on, off. I mean, and these are just on. So here I turned this off. So this is extra anti-aliasing on the post processing. So sometimes I do turn this on, and if I do, I run FXAA 311. So this can give you a little bit better picture quality, but I mean, you may not need it in VR. That's the thing. So I just leave it off for the time being. You can leave this stuff off. All of this stuff doesn't really matter. And grass effects. If you're running no Hesi or Pushin P servers, I don't think you're worried about grass too much unless you're drifting on the Brooklyn Park server. Um, GUI, I leave this on because I want a nice GUI and everything. Lighting effects. So this I have tweaked. So just take a pause here. Look at my settings. You can copy this and then kind of go off of this and see what looks best for you or performs best for you. So this is one of the biggest ones here. So I have this. Sometimes you can set this to 6. Most people do set it to 6. I set it to 5 because I don't really care how many cars are casting light. I turn these dynamic shadows off because this is very taxing. I already have higher shadows. I don't need that. I have a Thrustmaster reel, so I don't use these. Neck effects is for single screen, so you don't need this. You can turn this off. AI behavior, yeah, leave that on. Loading screens, I leave it on because I just like to see the information and know if I can use my H shifter or if I have to press buttons to shift. So I leave this on. Modes, I don't know what that does. I just leave it off. Nice screenshots, I leave that off. Particles effect, this self particles are gonna be a little bit more expensive on your system. So if you want to turn it on, you can, but I leave it off. Some of the things like the new smoke and dust might be pretty good, so I used to use some of it, but I do not at the moment, so I just leave it off for now. Reflections, I leave this on. This is a must, especially with you running pure and everything, so this is a must. I leave that on. And these are just some of the settings I use. You can tweak it, of course, but I wouldn't do too much. Shadow wheels, leave it on. It's not too taxing. Skid marks effect, these are just updated onto what Assetto Corsa already has. So smart mirrors, you're gonna want this on if you're playing in VR. So you can use real mirrors. So try it, see what works for you. But I just have kind of moderate settings here. Use Tilt VR and these settings from some of my research because I've done a lot of due diligence to get to these settings. Smart shadows, I have this on. You can copy these settings. These aren't the original Assetto Corsa settings, but I've gathered these again from my research, and it's taken a while to find good settings for AC. Taskbar, I leave this on. That's just your side thing. Track adjustments, you can leave that on. Tires effects, it's up to you. So this is just if your tires are breaking down. I mean, I don't think that happens on no Hesi servers, but yeah, that's just what it is. And then weather effects, of course, we already covered this. Want that on, of course. Windscreen effects. So you want to turn this on and then remove dirt completely, because those little dirt spots might just kill your FPS just a little bit. So turn this on right here. And yeah, beast, I have this on just in case you wanna do some stuff. So with this, you can actually change your PP filter in game and stuff like that, and I got readjust it, but you may not want to do that in VR. So this I turn all 3 of these settings on because this just helps how you see. So I'm in VR, I don't need all this stuff going on in the back. Triple screens, no, I'm in VR again. So here, these are good for your performance basically. So you can tweak these as you want. If you have an NVIDIA card, this is gonna work better for you. So you can probably just turn this up just a little bit if you have an NVIDIA card. But if I have this on, this is not gonna work for me if I don't have an NVIDIA card. So I have this to just highest performance. And what single pass stereo does is it just increases. So by default, your VR headset is gonna render the middle at a higher resolution, and at the edge, it's gonna be a little bit less because you're not looking at that area. Your eyes only see a certain degree in the middle where it's actually focused, and the outside is just your peripheral vision. So with that, I turn this on. This saves you a lot of headroom. Um, this plus FSR is kind of where I get a lot of my headroom extra, where I can just crank up my settings a lot. So here, turn this on. I have it on balance. If you put it on narrow, you'll notice that you can see sometimes your mirrors will be like all blurry and shit. So can't say that, but yeah. But here I have it on balance, and then open VR tweaks. I just leave so open composite compatible. That's probably already on. So most of this you can just leave all of this on, and then all tweaks custom. I have this on. This stuff, you know, you can just keep it on, and then I'll show you what my settings look like in game, and I'll show you how to use the OpenVR toolkit, the OpenXR toolkit. Okay, so I have my headset on and I'm about to load into VR. So server up already is so with server, when you load in, you're gonna see this server has 23 cars in it. So that is taxing on the CPU. So when you load in, you're gonna see the Open XR toolkit, and we're gonna use that a little bit. So let me just take the. And these servers, they take a minute to load in, a minute or two, you know, as opposed to a different server or a different game. But like I said, this server probably has like 73 cars in it in total with drivers and traffic and everything. So you know, it just takes a second sometimes, even with an M2 drive. Let me just unbox that my view here. We're about to load in here. Okay. That was funky. Oh man, that was a way to launch into VR. Okay, so right now my ASW isn't forced for some reason. Let's see. So yeah, so in here that looks detailed. No stutters. I mean, it's not running my ASW, but see the headroom there. So let's launch this. So if you saw that little menu pop in where you can press control and your down hotkey, you can launch into this menu. So I have advanced, so I can see like everything that's going on, and it can tell me when this actually kicks in. So my target frame rate is actually 45. So running 45 at ASW, and then I want to turn on my, well, first you want to go all the way to menu, hit yes to show expert settings, and so much more settings are just gonna pop in. So you have to do this for every game manually each time you load in. But each time, well, when you load back into that same game, it's gonna save the settings. So with this, you have to reset if you make changes to your FSR or NIS, CS, whatever you use. I don't use this, so this is just gonna change where it's rendered, I guess, or how it's rendered in FSR. I just don't touch that because it is a little complicated. But if you wanna maximize your picture quality where it's located, you can do that, but I'm just focused on where I'm looking. So where I'm looking looks detailed. That's what's important to me. Oh, so yeah, that closes after a second. But yeah, so I have FSR at 50%. So how this works is it'll start at 100. Either you go up and it's upscaling, or you go down and it's using FSR to render at a lower resolution and show you a higher one when it's actually rendered. So actual FSR. The other way is FSR as an upscaler. I do not use it that way, but if you want to, you can. So I turn my sharpness up just a little bit. I mean, I could keep this at 40, but I like a sharp picture. And then so this turbo mode, it might give you a more consistent experience, but if you turn this on, ASW won't work. So in these servers, you kind of need ASW, or else you can't have a really nice picture quality. So see, and the rest of that I don't really touch. And you can leave that where it is. This is just, you can actually adjust one by one, like on my Oculus Rift you can't do that. So mine is actually like right there. Yes. This looks kind of crazy. Okay. Oh, shit. Yeah, but the Oculus itself moves in 0.5. So I mean, if you can measure this, you can do that with a phone app. So I know mine, but I just use this right here because it's just what is that? And I don't touch that. You can override your resolution, but I do not. I don't use any of this. So field of view, you can. So what this does is just a little bit closer, and it might save you some FPS right there. So you can actually go to advanced and just chop up and down, but it's gonna give you a stretched image, so you want to keep it at 95. So your image isn't as stretched. You see, so I keep this at where it is. So I don't like any funky picture quality. All right, so I'm just gonna drive around a little bit. You see how this looks. So my view. See? Graphic card is disappearing, but you get the gist. It looks smooth in the headset. You see the picture quality. You know, you can tweak your settings if you want to make it even nicer, but this is where I feel comfortable. It looks nice. I feel like I'm here. And let me just. What I'm going for is smooth and nice picture quality at the same time. Um, you don't have to compromise really if you don't want to. even in these real dense parts, what matters, man. And I know some people won't like ASW and FSR, and that's okay. If you don't, that's fine. What you can do here is you can just turn down the super sampling. Just leave it at your native resolution with no super sampling, and just run the game with mid to high settings with the maybe the second set that I put in, and try the content manager settings because those CSP settings are the custom shaders patch, my bad. Yeah, those CSP settings are actually very important because some of them can be taxing on your system, especially when you're in VR, because VR is taxing on like this is being rendered one time on the screen uh, at 1080, uh, two times for each eye, and then all the processing effects and all that, and then one more time in the Oculus mirror tool where it's being rendered, whatever is being rendered on your eyes is being rendered one more time on your screen for a third or fourth time, really. And then one more time when you're streaming and recording, which is very taxing on your CPU. And VR is taxing on both your CPU and your GPU. Yeah, you kind of want as much headroom as you can get on both parts, which is why you have to turn ASW on or motion smoothing when you're on these servers. So this is my settings. So I'm just gonna drive a bit more here, see how this goes, and